You noble diggers, all stand up now.
Welcome, comrade. Never forget the forms.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to my channel. Today we will be talking about the entire history of Western philosophy. Got a comment? Got a question? That was something along the lines of, like your passion. I liked that. And so he asked, what should he read from Trotsky, right? Trotsky wrote a lot of articles, a lot of essays, right? But he only wrote one real book, in my opinion, and that's the History of the Russian Revolution, right? It's 1,000 pages. It is a monumental text. I said in my reply that I don't think most people get like anything out of it, right? Like that it is so dense that it asks so much of you. It demands that you already know, right? It's not speaking to the masses. He's trying to speak from mountaintop to mountaintop. He wants to be heard by the geniuses of the future, and he demands that his viewpoint be seen. But to even participate in this kind of conversation with Trotsky, you have to have the back knowledge, the background knowledge, right? What even is Trotsky debating, right? What's he talking about? And what he's debating, what he's participating in, is the longest running debate in history, right? What we call philosophy, right? It means the love of wisdom, right? But that's a euphemism, right? And it's to deflect what its actual purpose is, right? All of the history of Western philosophy is a long-standing debate between the idealists, who point to rationality and the forms and ideals, right? And materialists, who think about how to manipulate a otherwise determined system. So that is what the debate is, right? Materialist versus idealist. That sounds technical and boring, though. The way I like to think of it is that this is a long-standing debate between the best metagamers in history. Metagamers means people who play the video game, or I guess it could be a board game, at such a high level that they have to manipulate the rules in order to compete with each other at the highest levels. The rules too, right? Where some metagamers will talk about what the meta is, meaning what their tactics should be, right? I don't really like talking about tactics. I'm a strategy guy. Yeah, so the metagame on history, right, is hard, right? Because this isn't a video game. There's no UI, there's no user interface, there's no health bar, there's no stats that will pop up for you. It is something that you have to not only set a UI over, right, which is a metaphor. I know some autistics actually do push their mental state to project a user interface over real life. That's insane. That's fucking nuts. I try, I can maintain it for seconds, and then I'm tired. And I go, what am I doing, right? It's so stupid. But the world has no user interface, right? So it makes this metagame hard. It makes it a debate hard about it, right? Because how do you know who's right, right? So what I've decided to do is I'm going to teach you the entire history of Western philosophy. We're going to do it slowly. It's going to take weeks, probably. I will put in the description the course syllabus, which will be all the books that we're going to cover over it. I'm going to teach you basically how I was taught, with some notable differences. The way I was taught, they always said to you, you know, just listen to the sources, right? Just make your own mind up. And at the end, we'll discuss who's right, right? Who's right about history. In fact, they introduced these Plato characters early on, and the weird questions and debates that they get up to, trying to ensnare you and try to not even mention the debate, right? They don't want to mention the debate until you're already deep into it. I think that's wrong, right? Why not just tell people what you have to offer, right? People go to chemistry because of you know, the crazy concoctions that they've made. People go to physics, right? Because we've gone to the moon, right? If you told them that philosophy conquered Russia and China, right? They might listen. Before we get into what I call the canon, which is the core syllabus of text that we're going to go over, the canon is a metaphor, right? It means like the Bible, right? That's how philosophers think of it, that it is as important to them as the Bible is to the early Christians, right? It's just what they say. I think it's kind of a harmful metaphor now that I'm thinking about it aloud, but it's correct, right? And in fact, maybe later generations will look on this canon with greater reverence than that canon. You never know. But before the canon, we're just cavemen, right? We're cavemen clapping rocks together. We're morons. We have no idea. And the debate that we have from that time, early thousands BC up until the early 400, 500 BC range, right before Plato and Socrates drop into the scene. It's stupid. It sounds stupid. Everything sounds stupid, right? So I've put four thinkers here, and we're not going to talk about them. Basically, nothing survives of what they've thought, right? We have writing fragments, which means very small pieces, quotes from later authors that had the sources still, right? Thales is the first philosopher, and basically his only contribution was the thought, well, maybe everything started as water, right? The whole universe, all the world started as water, right? That's how basic we're talking about here in this debate about reality. These are cavemen who can only see the sun and the sky and the plains. Heraclitus says, everything is in flux. All is war, is Heraclitus's attribution to the meta game, right? He says that all is strife, all is war, right? And you have heard of Heraclitus before. I swear to you, you've heard of Heraclitus before, because they quote him using Disney's Pocahontas, right? The thing I like most about rivers is you can never step in the same river twice. It's Heraclitus, right? And I'm going to point here that it's interesting that Western idealist dominated CIA propaganda machine Disney sees materialism, which is what Heraclitus was getting at there, as Orientalist or other or Eastern or New World or barbarian or backward. They always push materialism to be a stand-in for that, right? That's interesting. And then Parmenides, right? Parmenides is the opposite of Heraclitus. All is not strife, all is one, right? All is one interconnected being, one thing. And he arrives at it through pure logic, not through any observations, just logic, right? So these are the cavemen that are clapping together rocks when Plato and Socrates get on the scene, right? Socrates actually is the first person that gets on the scene. We have nothing that Socrates wrote. Nothing, right? Not a word. He never wrote anything. Right? What Socrates did was he was a citizen of Athens, a stone worker, right? And a soldier too, apparently not a very good one. And he would go out into the market in his leisure time, and he would challenge the high and mighty to debate certain topics and slap them around, right? And crush them in it, right? And that is the first philosopher. What we do have are the writings of his student, Plato, right? And so when I was taught, they just taught this text first, right? They just taught the texts in order, actually. What they first taught was the apology, right? And the apology is the arrest and trial of Socrates for embarrassing these high and mighty people, right? But I think that's incorrect. I'm telling you that everyone who's a genius for the last 150 years has been a materialist, right? And so we're going to do it backwards. We're going to do just slightly backwards, right? I think before you need to see the trial of Socrates, you need to see what he was up to, right? And before you see, yeah. So we'll do early Plato next week. The Plato is divided up into early, mid, and late. All his early work is considered like almost pure Socrates, but that's wrong. Only the Apology, the one text, the first text, the recount of Socrates' trial and condemnation to death, that is probably as close to Socrates' words as you can ever get, right? Everything else after is Plato, right? Socrates becomes increasingly a sock puppet, right? And the only thing that Socrates said that you need to remember is the wise know that they know nothing. The Euthyphro. The Euthyphro is our first dialogue. I hope you've read it. I don't know how you could have. The course texts are just in the description now. Euthyphro comes across Socrates and they get to chatting, and it turns out that Euthyphro is leading a prosecution against his father, right? Not for any serious crime. Can't remember what the crime is. I didn't reread these texts. I'm not rereading these texts for you people. But the discussion of piety comes up, right? Because it is, he says it's pious to prosecute his father, right? Because it shows that he has convictions to the state and to ideals above, family ties, right? And Socrates goes, "Oh, it's pious, right? I don't know what piety is. Would you teach me?" And prosecute father. So he goes, "What is piety?" And then Euthyphro goes, "It's what I'm doing. I'm prosecuting my father." And he goes, "No, no, that's an example. Can you define it for me? I just want to know." You know what I mean? And Euthyphro goes, "Well, piety is what is dear to the gods, right?" And Socrates goes, "Right? The gods, those guys can't decide on anything. They bicker all the time, right? What is pious to one god surely is not pious to another, right?" And the guy, Euthyphro, ruffles his feathers a bit and goes, "Well, obviously I meant beloved by all the gods, right?" And this is where Socrates hits his first, Socratic moment, the first devastating haymaker he lands on somebody, which is that, is pious good because it is loved by the gods, or is it, or are the gods good because they love piety? Right? Is good God, or is God good? Either way, the answer is unsatisfactory. Right? To me, that's indicative that materialism is right, right? That words are completely hallucinatory and imaginative, that if you try to identify God and good, it breaks down either way. Doesn't matter which way you put it. So what Euthyphro says is piety is sacrifice, right? Piety is showing the gods that you believe, right? Like giving them a goat or something like that. And Socrates goes, "Well, that can't be right because that's like a transaction, right? I give you, you give me, right? And you're talking about piety." This has been our first text in the course. It'll be about, I don't know, 20 books or so that we'll go through. I get progressively more serious as the texts become more serious. I might even reread something. I probably will when we get to Kant or Marx or Hegel. Hegel. Yeah, but I hope you enjoy this series. I hope to make all my beliefs accessible to you. I hope you continue to ask questions. This is an open experience, an open project, right? We're collaborating here. I come off as condescending and arrogant, and I apologize for that. I really do, but I don't mean to be, and I don't try to be. So if you ask a question, I will answer in good faith. This is that good faith. It's going to be a 20-part good faith. I may interrupt here or there if I decide that the news demands it, or I have a good idea for the algorithm or something like that. But otherwise, we'll trundle along this path. Thank you. Have a good day. Hello, you've made it to the end of the video. Thank you. This channel has one mission: to prevent civilizational collapse associated with climate change, to prevent 100 million refugees by 2035, to stop 7 billion from starving to death by 2075. And we will do this through one main vehicle. We mean to unite the Anglosphere. We will do this by convincing the Commonwealth of His Majesty King Charles III to apply for statehood as one. And then with this new power, we will be able to negotiate in good faith with the rest of the world on how to tackle this crisis. Thank you and enjoy.